Welcome to the program Global Weekly News, serial number 71. Comrades, first we go to see how bad is the wages of Indian workers. Then we go to see how Pakistan was affected by IMF conditionalities. Then we will see Afghanistan floods, and lastly on Israel developments. Comrades, first, Indian workers getting low wages. Central government recently released the report called the Periodic Labour Force Survey for 22-23, based on an annual survey of about 1 lakh households representing about 4,20,000 persons. Since 2019, the jobs crisis is worsening. It deepened during the pandemic COVID-19 in the years 2020 and 2021. The report is capturing a reality where unpaid labor, especially of women, has increased significantly. Informal work has increased. Agriculture is increasingly the mainstay of work, and low-paying self-employment dominates the world of work. It is better to compare the current report 22-23 with the Periodic Labour Survey report of 2018-19, the last report from a pre-corona year. This will give a sense of how the jobs scenario has changed in the past 5 years. In 2018-19, self-employed persons made up 52% of all employed. Those earning a regular wage or salary were 24%, and casual labor were 24%. By 22-23, after 5 years, the share of self-employed had increased to 57%, while the share of both regular wage earner and casual labor had declined from 24 to 21% and 24 to 22% respectively. The share of women in self-employment has jumped up notably from 53% 5 years back to 65% in 22-23. This was accompanied by the decline of women in regular wage employment from about 22 to 16% and from 25 to 19% in casual labor over the same period. It looks likely that given the miserable earning levels eroded as it is like by inflation, and with the prevailing scarcity of jobs, women have been forced to do whatever extra bit of work to supplement the earnings of other members of the family. Employment in agriculture has increased from 41% to 43% in the last 5 years. In construction sector, it has increased from 12% to 13%. Both these sectors are marked by low wages, seasonality of work availability, lack of social security, and bad working conditions. All the other major sectors, manufacturing, trade and hotels, transport and communication, and even other services, which includes administrative and personal services, education, health, etc., have shown declines in employment. The average daily wage of a casual worker is just rupees 403, which would translate to 12,000 rupees 75 per month if he or she gets work for all 30 days. Male casual workers earn rupees 12,990, while female casual workers get only 8,385 rupees per month. In the self-employed category, the average earning of a man is 15,197, while self-employed women earn just 5,516 per month. 5,516. Regular wage or salary earning of a man is 20,666, and of a woman is 15,722 per month. There are no equal wages for equal work. In the last 5 years, price rise is 30%, but self-employed worker wages increased only by 27%. Wage increase of a regular or salaried worker is only 23%. The price rise is 30%. That means real wages have come down. Only wages of a casual worker has gone up by 45%. That is because since their wage levels were so pathetically low to begin with, Central Trade Unions and Samyukta Kisan Morcha have given a call for Magapadav on November 26 to 28 before all the Rajbhavans, emphasizing demands like minimum monthly earnings of rupees 26,000, and that is to be taken note of. So the Indian working class is demanding 26,000 rupees per month, but their average wages are between 10 to 15,000 only. There is a wide gap. Comrades, many people think that in Pakistan the situation may be better. It is not so. Let us see the details. Pakistan has been associated with extremism and terrorism for over 2 decades. More recently, Pakistan has become known for natural disasters and political upheavals. Catastrophic floods have displaced lakhs and lakhs of people, while a controversial vote of confidence in March 2022 forced Prime Minister Imran Khan and his party PTI out of office. The IMF has projected that Pakistan's economy will grow by a mere 0.5% in 2023 and the inflation rates will move upwards to 27%. Pakistan's population is increasing at a rate of 1.8%. Population increase 1.8%, whereas economic growth is only 0.5%. That means GDP per capita will shrink. The average Pakistani is going to be significantly poorer in the coming years. According to the World Bank, 88 lakh people in Pakistan likely slipped below the poverty line in 2002, owing to the combined effects of inflation and destruction of crops by the floods. During Corona period, people experienced many miseries. Both the exports and foreign exchange reserves declined. Industries of Pakistan could not compete in the international market. Imports exceeded export levels. The current Pakistan Democratic Movement Coalition government, which came to power in April 2022, is experiencing enormous economic and political difficulties. The government has delayed provincial elections, defying the rulings of the Pakistan's Supreme Court. Meanwhile, breadlines are growing longer and desperately poor people have been crushed in stampedes at wheat flour distribution centers. Pakistan has entered into 23 agreements with the IMF. Moreover, the present austerity measures that have caused electricity, fuel and gas prices to skyrocket were recommended by the IMF. In 1995, Pakistan joined the World Trade Organization and the country's average import tariffs decreased from 45% to 8.6%. For the last 20 years, foreign imports have been flooding the local consumer market. Out of Pakistan's external debts, only 30% came from China. That Chinese loans were given to develop the infrastructure under the Belt and Road project. China is not imposing any conditionalities like IMF. Textile exporters have been unable to enhance labor productivity over the last 4 decades. There has been no serious effort either in the public sector or in the private sector to improve the country's technological infrastructure. As a result, over the time, Countries such as Bangladesh, China and Vietnam have surpassed Pakistan in textile productivity and in textile exports. The country's economy is transforming from one that primarily exported cotton and cotton-related products during the Green Revolution in the 1960s and 1970s to a country that is increasingly exporting mainly its workforce and labor power. There is a gap of $4,200 crore between imports and exports. Out of this gap, $3,000 crore is filled with foreign remittances from Pakistanis working in foreign countries. Today, nearly half of the Pakistan's power Comrades, today nearly half of Pakistan's power is produced by the private power producers called Independent Power Producers, IPPs. The IPPs are having effective profit guarantees in US dollars since the rates of fuel inputs and electricity outputs are predetermined by the contract in dollar terms. When the price of the dollar goes up, when the value of the Pakistan rupee comes down, it increases the cost to the government. Once the IPPs are ready to produce power, the government must pay the private firms a certain amount of money even if the government does not buy power from them. The agreement with IPP investors allowed IPPs complete freedom to choose how they would produce electricity. They have opted to do so using furnace oil, liquid natural gas and imported coal. Thus, electricity production is through burning fossil fuels rather than depending on hydropower. Unit cost of production from these fuels is nearly 8 times more than hydropower. Roughly 1/4 of Pakistan's imports are oil and gas. When the government is unable to pay the independent power producers, IPPs, the country suddenly plunges into darkness. These frequent power cuts have destroyed several industries, especially the growing powerloom sector in Faisalabad. Government distribution companies suffer the largest losses. Pakistan, due to IMF pressure, privatized 172 public sector undertakings between 1991 and 2015. At present, there are 85 remaining state-owned enterprises. 51 of these public sector undertakings are turning profit. Roughly 80 to 90% of public sector losses stem from only 9 Pakistani public sector enterprises. Pakistan Railways, Pakistan International Airlines, Pakistan Steel Mills Corporation, Zarai Bank Limited and 5 electricity distribution companies. The costly power sector is the main reason for Pakistan's massive budget deficit. Shehbaz Sharif is the Prime Minister. Shehbaz Sharif led Pakistan government negotiated a $300 crore IMF loan, 23rd loan. Release of IMF money was contingent upon the government taking the following measures. 1. Removing all subsidies related to electricity, gas and fuel. 2. Raising the interest rate. 3rd. Allowing the market to determine the exchange rate, dollar into Pakistan rupee rate. And 4th, restructuring public sector undertakings. To secure the IMF deal, the finance minister unilaterally changed the budget by reducing government spending and adding new taxes. These got no approvals by the National Assembly or the Parliament. This is most flagrant violation of the country's sovereignty in its 76 years since independence. Monetary policy, fiscal policy Our overall economic policy is no longer under Pakistani control. Private capital has been leaving Pakistan at a steady rate. Much of the ruling class's wealth is parked overseas in foreign banks and real estates in the Middle East. Pakistanis purchased properties in Dubai. The Pakistan government is unable to control this capital flight and promote domestic investment in the country. In 2022, 8 lakh Pakistanis left Pakistan to work abroad, a number that is expected to reach 10 lakhs in 2023. Can any economy progress if it loses 10 lakh educated workers every year? Free, independent, capitalist development is not there in Pakistan. The first steps that Pakistan can take towards economic independence would be to regulate international trade and the exchange rate, take back control of the State Bank of Pakistan, and reject any budget that has not been approved by the National Assembly. Due to IMF's conditionalities and pressures, even the bourgeois democracy, the capitalist democracy, is in danger, leaving more powers to the military. Now we go to Afghanistan. Due to a series of earthquakes in Afghanistan, about 4,000 have died. 90% of those who died are women, children and the elderly. First earthquake occurred at 11 a.m. Male members were away in the fields for work. Due to Taliban's conditions, women work is banned. They and their children and elderly were in their homes. Afghanistan population is 4.3 crores. 3 crore people are in need of international aid as per UN report. Taliban's policy is to go for less and lesser foreign aid. Besides, mostly women were working in aid agencies, gaining experiences. They could not be replaced by men. After Taliban came to power, 6 lakh Afghans migrated to Pakistan. In the first week of October, the Pakistani government has ordered deportation of the undocumented 17 lakh Afghan nationals. This has created lot of difficulties for poor Afghanistanis living in Pakistan. Cuban doctors and the health staff provided medical service to the earthquake-affected people. Then we are going to see what are the developments in Israel. Israelis attack on Jabalia refugee camp. On October 31st, Israel dropped 6 US-made bombs, each weighing 1 ton, on the most populated neighborhood of Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza, killing and injuring 400. 60,000 residents are in Jabalia in only 1.4 square kilometers. The US funds Israel to the tune of $400 crore each year. As Israel carries out its genocide in Gaza, the US Congress is set to approve $1,430 crores in emergency funds for Israel. Next we see how Bolivia severed its ties with Israel. On 31st October, Bolivia became the first Latin American country since 7th October to sever ties with Israel, to break ties with Israel, citing war crimes in the Gaza Strip. In 2009, the then Bolivian President Evo Morales severed ties or broke the ties with Israel in protest of attacks against the Gaza Strip. However, the right-wing government of Jeanine Áñez restored ties in 2019. Now, Luis Arce, the president of Bolivia, broke the ties, severed ties with Israel. He called on the UN Security Council to prevent the genocide of the Palestinian people and pave a definitive solution for Palestine to exercise its right to self-determination, to have its own territory without illegal occupations and fully enjoy the attributes of a free, sovereign and independent state. Come next. Worldwide, there have been many demonstrations, massive demonstrations in solidarity with Palestine. Let us see what type of solidarity in England. On 14th October, over 1 lakh people turned up for pro-Palestine demonstrations in various cities across the United Kingdom to denounce the Israeli war crimes in Gaza. On 21st October, around 3 lakh people joined a massive demonstration in London as part of the National March for Palestine. On 28th October, 5 lakh people rallied in London in solidarity with Palestine. Marches were also held in cities of Manchester, Glasgow, Newcastle, Liverpool, Belfast, Leeds, Bradford and Bristol among others. Jeremy Corbyn MP addressed the massive rally in London. He condemned the pro-Israel stand of England in the United Nations General Assembly vote. Lastly, we see how the UNICEF has described the children's death in Gaza. Filippi Lazzarini, Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, stated that Israel is carrying out collective punishment against Palestinians across the occupied territories and asked the world to ensure that women and children do not become collateral damage. Lazzarini was speaking at an emergency session of the UN Security Council on 30th October, called by the United Arab Emirates and China to yet again push to a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Addressing the session, Catherine Russell, Executive Director of UNICEF, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF Executive Director, said that over 3,400 children had been killed and over 6,300 injured. This means that more than 420 Palestinian children are being killed or injured in Gaza each day, a number which should shake each of us to our core, she added. Israeli forces have been indiscriminately bombing the Gaza Strip for the last 25 days. Its forces also launched a ground offensive on 28 October. The numbers of total Palestinians killed so far in the Israeli bombings in Gaza crossed 8,300 on 31st October, with over 20,000 Palestinians injured. Israel again used white phosphorus on civilians in Gaza on 30th October against all international laws. Lazzarini claimed that over 6,70,000 Palestinians are forcefully displaced. 14 lakh Palestinians have been forced out of their homes due to Israeli offensive since 7th October. Over 65 United Nations staff members and 29 Palestinian journalists were also killed. Palestinian ambassador to United Nations claimed that Gaza is now hell on earth. Comrades, let us go for massive solidarity demonstrations in solidarity with Palestine. Long live Palestinian people. Down with Israeli genocide. Thank you, comrades. Salam. See you next week.